let's get into it, everybody. Today is it's September's edition of Fashion News. So we are going to go ahead and get started. We got a lot of topics, so I try to give you a lot of details, but we're gonna try to get through it quickly. Update. I have talked about this before, which is the Hermes heir Nicholas Puch. I probably am mispronouncing his last name because it's French. Anyway, now to recap for the folks who have no idea what I'm talking about, this started when one of the Hermes heirs decided to no, he wanted to adopt his gardener in order for him to be his heir. Of course, when you are estate planning, doing things of that nature, you have legal documents, proof of funds, all of those type of things need to be set in place, paperwork, all of that. And I believe this is where it started from, where when that happened, then some kind of way it trickled down into you don't actually have these shares anymore. And where are they? So it's this big mystery. Well, because he was under the impression that he still had these shares. Well, that part of the mystery has been solved. Nicholas no longer has these shares. Let's get into it here, which is he had a share 16 billion, yes, $1 billion worth of Hermes shares that he owns and once owned, no longer does anymore. And according to the chairman, which is Alex Dumas, he mentioned in a statement that Nicholas has not had these shares for some time. Doesn't define how long, but it's definitely been a very long time, at least, because there's been some other things that have come out, which we'll get into. And also, he does not think that these shares will be recovered, which is unfortunate for the Hermes family that owns a large stake in this company. Now, if you remember in a previous video, I talked about their mysterious and interesting link with LVMH. H's chairman, I want to say, is his title, but we're talking about Benard Arnault. According to news stories that I read, there was a attempted takeover by Arnault. This was successfully thwarted by the Hermes family. There's about 100 members. They successfully said, you're not putting your hands over here. Can you imagine, just for a second, can you imagine if LVMH owned Hermes, what the company would look like today? Speculate in the comments down below. I would love to get your thoughts. But anyway, they successfully said, oh no, buddy, you're not coming over here, which is amazing. And congratulations to them for that. But this happened some years ago, like over a decade ago. Now, if Huge actually still had ownership of these shares, he would be the largest share owner. Right. Absolutely crazy. Now, what I also wonder about is where is the source of what are his other sources of wealth? Because 16 billion in these shares, I'm assuming that he has some other sources of wealth as well. But anyway, we'll move on from there. If you are new here, my name is India with Bags and Lifestyle, where I talk about just fashion related topics and lifestyle topics. Really, it just runs the whole list. So definitely, if you like it over here, please go ahead and hit the like button. If you're at this point, just hit the like button now. This is just a simple thank you to all of us creators out there that at least take the time to research topics, put together videos, edit them, and upload them. And this is something that you can do to just say thank you and for your support. So please just go ahead and hit the like button. All right, moving on from there, we are going to talk about Strathberry. Now, Strathberry is actually a brand that I have not had the pleasure of seeing in person. I've seen good reviews about them on some folk channels that I have watched. Also, I think of them kind of like a Polin, where it's like the darling of a mid-price luxury range or affordable luxury, mid-tier range luxury, however you want to call it. And similar to, like I said, Polin, but I think the thing with Polin is that it seemed like they were more flooded in the social media. You saw them a lot more than you do with theory, in my opinion. Either way it goes, they are doing really well. And the husband and wife duo, who are the co-founders of Strathberry, which is an company that's based in Scotland, and they have workshops in Spain, are set to surpass $100 million in sales. I was about to say shares, but in sales in 3 years, which is really great, especially when you see this customer shift that's been happening over the last several years, where people have been there's been a gap in the market where the big luxury fashion houses have really just bumped their prices up extremely high, and conscious shoppers are looking at what those prices are and thinking, either I'm priced out, or I can pay this, but why am I paying this? Because I'm not getting the same thing or anything better for 3 and 4 times the price. Anyway, moving on from there, with the success of their company, it's interesting that they have seen a rapid expansion in the Middle East, which a lot of times you hear a lot of companies, they talk about expansion into Asia, and where this company is doing some seeing attention a little bit in a different area of the world, which I find interesting how certain brands, certain styles, even within the same brand, are more popular in depending on the region of the world that you're in. Now, 70% of their sales is online, which obviously I think is just absolutely a sign of the times, and where things have been going for the past 20 years or so. And they 50% of their market share is with the US, which I do find interesting, because a lot of times when we talk about a lot of times here with the European brands, for example, you will see more attention in the UK, and then you'll see US come in, and then China, with a lot of brands where US is dominating, which is very interesting. 30% of their market share is coming from the UK, then after that, and then the other 20% is coming from other countries. And also, if you did not know, the Row has bought a minority stake, I think, in Strathberry, if I remember correctly, as well. So that is something to keep your eye on. Mentioning that, like I said, customers wanting quality, affordable items where they don't feel like they're being taken advantage of. It's one thing that you know you're going to pay a lot more money for a name, but there also has to be something more than that to go with it. Now, Strathberry has not gone without any complaints. From my research, like I said, I don't have one and I haven't seen them in person, but there have been complaints about, or concerns about, the durability of the hardware. Also, sometimes the leather materials, which I think is to be expected with a company when you're manufacturing. That no one is immune to that. Hopefully, they do a good job of fixing that, and that's just few and far between. But those are some things that customers have brought up as a concern, especially since their signature is that music bar, which I think helps them stand apart. They have design bags that are very traditional, just like nothing stand out as far as like the styles go, but they make it their own with that music bar. That's kind of like their branding, what they're known for as soon as you see it, which I think they've done a good job of carving out a market where they can remain relevant, but also remain unique. Let me know if you have seen a Strathberry bag in person, or if you own one. I do like the Charlotte. Yeah, it's not high on my list to get, but I would like that one. I like the Loewe flamenco bag, but I think I would probably go for the Charlotte instead if I do go after that bag style. All right, moving on from there, we a lot of times I talk about pre-owned. I won't say a lot of times. Frequently, I do talk about pre-owned, and so I found that this falls into that range where I will periodically see stories about a massive amount of counterfeit goods that have been seized. And so in Louisville, Kentucky, there was valued at $30 million worth of earrings that were branded to be VCA, which is Van Cleef and Arpels, to been seized. It said that the source of where they were shipped from is Hong Kong, and then they came into an address in Miami, and then some kind of way ended up in Louisville, which is interesting how all that happens. It's about 7,000 pieces. And in the article, it did mention that the items were on the customs forms as necklaces, I believe, labeled as necklaces, and it was about just under 60 pounds in weight. And then when they opened up, they saw these VCA earrings that they have kept from flooding the market. I like to talk about pre-owned, and there is this unfortunate situation that you have where you do have to be careful with that. Even if you buy from the regular retail store, you have to be careful nowadays because people are getting very crafty with buying something and then returning something that is not what they bought. And so it is possible to get something that is not authentic from a retail store. You just have to be just be very careful about what you're getting and just make sure keeping a lookout and being careful out there. All right, next up on the list is going to be sex. This is also a topic that I've talked about before. And like I said, hit the like button. Okay, go ahead and do that, please. Thank you. And I've talked about it actually, I want to say at least two other times. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there was a merger. Saks, which is now Saks Global, did purchase Neiman Marcus. Now the stores that fall under Saks Global now are Saks Fifth Avenue, Neiman Marcus, and Bergdorf Goodman. With that said, there have been a lot of vendors that have been sounding the alarms because they have not been receiving payments. This has been going on for a while now. And back in February of this year, the CEO, Mark Metrick, yes, CEO Mark Metrick sent out a memo where he acknowledged the fact that there's an 18-month backlog for vendors that they're paying, that they need to pay, and that they were going to start making payments in July of this year. In the article that I read, which for reference, everything will be linked down below so you can check it out. There was a skincare brand that is sold through Saks that has been sending emails. They were featured in the article because they're threatening to take legal action because according to them, they were promised payments and the payments have been inconsistent. And when you think about these vendors that are supplying Saks and Neiman Marcus or any of these stores, and you go that long without receiving something that you sent off last year, that can put a company under, especially when you're dependent upon sales from some of these larger retail stores. That there are the people who own the companies that are in jeopardy. You also have the people who work for them that are in jeopardy of losing their livelihoods. It's just a big snowball effect. So it's a very serious situation, and it's very unfortunate that a lot of these companies are going through this issue. And I hope that it gets resolved very soon and these companies are able to find their footing and this not impact them where they have to close their doors. This has been impacting Saks, which rightfully so. You have these vendors who are saying, well, you haven't paid me or you haven't been consistent with paying me. I'm not going to either A, supply the customers with these items, that merchandise, or I'm not going to supply your stores. Right? Like if you go to a job and you have not gotten paid in 18 months, are you going back to work? Same thing. So it's just very unfortunate that this is happening. And Saks has been struggling. Definitely, their sales have been reported to be their year-over-year revenue has been reported to be at a 16% decline. As of, I want to say this article came out in June. It was written in August, but they were referencing June revenue, I believe. Let me know what you think about that. But that's also a thing you have to think about too, where if, getting people to come back in the store is a task. Two, when they go into the store and there's nothing there, that impacts the shopping experience and also impacts whether people will come back. And if people are not coming back into the store, and a lot of times these luxuries, like a Saks is an anchor store, then if that means that they have to close up because they're not getting the revenue, then the people who work in the store are losing their jobs or have to find somewhere else to work or transfer to another Saks location. It's just like a big snowball effect. But then on top of that, you have these vendors that rely on this income, they've sent out merchandise and they haven't gotten it. So there's just a big, entire mess happening. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.